Justin Herbert has arrived as a fantasy football player. First round fantasy fans, and welcome on into the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your home for second round advice. We are so happy you guys could join us here today. I'm joined as always by Jacob Bartley, DeMont Ricks, and this Justin, more sauce. Thanks for filling in today for Joe. We'll catch him on the next one. Guys, how are we doing?
Pretty good.
Monday night.
Guys, we got to get better on the hype train.
Mont, you're muted.
Oh, I was look at us getting off to a great start like we always do. Do you guys like that hot take? Justin Herbert as a must-start fantasy QB. Look at this. Last 2 weeks, top 10 quarterback. The third week before that, top 20. The week before that, top 10. Justin Herbert is here to stay for fantasy football, boys. I'm digging it. I want me some more of them.
I like pretty high on him before this, but he's a beast.
Did you pick him up in one of our dynasty leagues, Jacob? I think you did.
No, I didn't. Which one of our some other guy has him in the dynasty league, and then Hayden has him in our keeper league. Well, I wouldn't keep him in a 6-keeper league though. Like that's
he's
not that good.
But I do surely think as we get into our waiver wires later, I mean, he's a QB that's going to be out there. I recommend you take a look at the big boys' way.
He's on a bye week next week. But DeMont, you're still muted. Click yourself. Click the mute button, the unmute button.
Hey guys, guess what? It's the 21st century, and one of our own, DeMont Riggs, doesn't know how to work a computer. There he is. Welcome on in, DeMont. I was wondering where the big celebration was coming from. How we doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm
good, man. I'm happy to hear it. Hey. So, again, a great week for fantasy football, man. It's good to have it back. Of course, we had some COVID disruptions. We'll get into that a little bit in the episode. But we're not going to waste any of your guys' time today. Oh, wait, I am. If you hadn't noticed, we've been tracking some book it downs throughout the year. Before the season started and now as the season is trickling on, we do our weekly book it downs whenever we find just a very enticing type of side bet that we like to take, whether it be players being better than one another, rest of season, things like that. Well, guess what, boys? A few of them have panned out. So I wanted to go ahead and take a gander before we got started today. And your first one, it hasn't necessarily panned out yet, but will Sony Michel finish over or under 900 yards and 17?
Hell no.
Not even close.
Hell no.
I mean, hey, there's a second half of the season, but for right now, I've highlighted us in the win column. And when I say us,
you can't call wins yet. You got to.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, fine. Well, then I got to get into the real one.
That one's looking really bad for me. And I'm sure you're gonna bring up the other big one that was, yeah.
There is another one. All right. Okay, I know one that is for sure then, and that was: will the Raiders be 3-3 or better 6 games into
Was that
the season?
Really one of them?
That was one of them. And Jacob and Joe said that the Raiders would not be better than 3-3 at 6 games into the season. Well, guess who was right? DeMont and Gabe.
Hold on. It's only we're only done with week 5.
No, but if the Raiders lose,
are they 3-2?
They're 3-2, baby.
Okay. Well, then, yeah. I mean, no matter what happens, you guys win that one. All right, Gabe, stop trying to make yourself look good and make me look bad, because
we have one more.
One against Stephon Diggs being a top 15 wide receiver.
I was on that one, by the way.
Oh, yes. I believe that was in week 3. Will Stephon Diggs be over or under 100 yards?
The season started.
No, this was in week 3. He finished under with 49 yards. Guess who was under? Joe and me.
Talking about the season long? Or
but week 3.
No. We're talking about the
season long, though.
Well,
yeah.
If
Stephon Diggs will be top 15 or not, Joe, me, and DeMont said yes.
We're not at season long yet. That was in week 3. That was in week 3. Stay with me here, boys. So we got a winner there, Joe and Gabriel. And this one has also panned out. In week 4, which was 2 weeks ago, when Joe Mixon was my dark horse and Justin was very much opposed to that idea, Will Joe Mixon have over or under 80 yards and a TD? Well, guess what? Justin, Joe, and DeMont were facing the stack against me. They didn't think he'd get there, and Gabe came up on top. So I'm tooting my own horn here, boys. Hey, that's just the way the cards played out. We'll see how the rest of them shake out. We do bucket downs all the time, so you guys have plenty of time to, catch up to me. It's all good. No? Too salty? All right, it's fine.
Well, don't forget to mention that you said Stephon Diggs wouldn't be a top 15 wide receiver.
Yeah. Hey, there's still time.
No, you're going to lose that.
All right, folks, let's go ahead and get into some injuries. So honestly, I mean, first and foremost, you have to talk about Dak Prescott. Just a gruesome injury, compound fracture. Luckily, the surgery went well, 4 to 6 month timetable. Unfortunately, that ends his season. What do you guys think about that though? I mean, outside of fantasy perspective, I mean, this was a guy that was literally in contract talks the last 2 years in a row. He was looking to get paid Deshaun Watson type money, probably not Mahomes, but he was looking to be one of those upper echelon paid quarterbacks. And it's very unlikely that he gets that money now. So how do you feel about that in terms of I just hate to see that happen. Like, I wanted to see the guy get paid. And so it's just sad. It honestly is just sad to me.
It's honestly ridiculous. I've been saying for years, look, I don't know the ins and outs and details of the franchise tag. I'm sure it exists for a reason, other than to just like be negative on players. But I think it's bull crap. Like, just straight up. That's not fair that like, the Titans, we can just franchise tag Derrick Henry, because like running backs don't have a lot of NFL life. They only are elite for a certain period of years, so they deserve to get at least one fat paycheck. Dak Prescott, he was on pace for like the greatest statistical season ever. Yeah. And even though they were losing, but they were going head to head with teams, and it's very unfortunate. Like, the thing is, I'm pretty sure they have insurance and stuff for these type of things. Like, so he'll get paid something, but he's not gonna get that $100 million payday or whatever it was gonna be.
Yeah, so, clearly we're not the analyst on that type of stuff.
The weird thing is, like, I was Sunday when that game was on, I was watching a different game. I flipped to the Cowboys game, right? As soon as I flipped to it, that's that play. That play had started.
Jacob, you cursed them.
That's what I kind of felt like, but I don't want to like
it definitely made me more sympathetic to like players that hold out, because just like that, if you just go in with the hope of getting that contract and you get hurt, you kind of screw yourself. And I think the insurance will only come into place if they did pay him, but they didn't. So, I mean, he's only going to get what he's owed.
Well, the thing is, I was watching it and I saw him go down, and he was like, his face didn't look like it hurt that bad, but he was just like kind of touching his leg. And
he was in shock for sure.
Yeah, he was squeezing.
I thought his shoe was off of his foot. And his whole foot was bent sideways.
It was a compound fracture. It broke skin.
Oh my God. And it was the most gruesome thing that I ever watched live.
Have you ever seen Anderson? You see that Anderson Silva when he broke his leg?
Oof. No, I didn't.
Dude, that was bad. Or Sean Livingston when he played for the
Clippers. That was bad too.
Or during the NCAA tournament when Kevin Ware busted his knee, or he busted his ankle too.
They had to blur it out when they were showing it again. They blurred out his leg.
Yeah, it's just tough to see, and also it put like a weird stake on the rest of my day, because then I watched the Sunday night game and then tonight's Monday night game, or yesterday's Monday night game, and I'm just like sitting here thinking every single play a guy gets tackled and like there's somebody clumbing down on him. I'm like, oh God, he's gonna break his ankle. Dude,
is that a word?
Stake? I meant to say clamp. All right, you know what? We're moving on. It's sad for Dak Prescott. Guess what? The cook himself, he added in a bit of the injury recipe. He finds himself with an MRI on his groin today, but positive signs after that. Seems to be doing well. There is reason to believe, though, that he could miss a week, so hopefully you have that Mattinson insurance. The Minnesota Vikings have a bye next week, So they're looking to maybe hold him out after after next week's performance. I don't know how relevant AJ Green is these days, but he pulled a hammy. His days are likely numbered. You can probably drop him in most 10 to 12 team leagues. Sammy Watkins also pulled a hammy. Be on the lookout for that. Deontay, DeMond's man, took a nasty hit, took him out for the rest of the game. That was a weird one. But obviously,
I didn't see it. What was it, a concussion or no?
No, he took a hit to the back.
Oh,
and it looked weird. It didn't look like obviously as nasty as Dak or something like that, but it was one of those weird, awkward hits where you're just like, "Ugh, that didn't feel good," and like you feel it, but you're not the player. That's how bad it was. And then last but not least, DJ Chark finds himself on the injury report. He got a little shaken up in the third quarter of yesterday's games. So some things to keep an eye on, monitor it, make sure that they're healthy going into next week, and they're going to be looking to be in your lineups. All right, boys.
A couple last minute things. Devontae Adams did practice today, so he's trending up. And then Keenan Allen hurt his back in tonight's game, which just happened. So got to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, that's sad to see. But yeah, keep an eye out for that, and let's move into some waiver wire.
I'm ready to go in, Coach. Just give me a chance. But it's all psychological. Just got to stay in a positive frame of mind.
All right, boys. Waiver wire. Where do we start? We start to get into the thick of the season now where you have these spotty games. Perfect example that I'll bring up first is Justin Jefferson last week. The guy blew up. He was everyone's first pick on the waiver wire. He gets picked up. You intend to start him in your lineup. We did in our first round fantasy league. We'll see how that went. And long behold, he puts up a dud. So this week, naturally, look at Chase Claypool's performance last week. I mean, the guy had a monster game. How likely are you to pick him up or spend a waiver wire priority on Chase Claypool this week? Jacob, what about you?
I think you have to if he's available, honestly, because the thing is, it doesn't matter the circumstances on the team at this point, because that was more than a blow-up game. That was like a outrageous monster game. And regardless, look, if Deontay's out, that's a whole other story. Then it's 100% yes. Use your number one waiver claim on him, to be honest, for me. But we have to wait and see on that. But no matter what the circumstances are, if you're a coach, if you're a team, if you're Ben, you're like, okay, we got to use this guy. He's a weapon on our offense that we have to utilize. So he's going to be used going forward. So I say pick him up if you can, because if you don't and he continues to dominate, you're going to regret it.
Touche. Jacob, do you also have a waiver wire pickup this week that you're thinking about?
There's a lot, man. Like, look, there's not an elite option, right? And I feel like wide receiver ones are tough because unless you're talking about like maybe like if Keenan Allen's out and Mike Williams is healthy, then that's a big one, right? Like that's an obvious choice. But Claypool, there's a chance that with all the other wide receivers there, he kind of just continues to be the fourth guy, So wide receivers are tough. There's not a lot because even with like, I don't know why Alexander Mattison is not rostered in over 90% of leagues, because if you have Dalvin Cook, you have to have Mattison on your roster. But even with that, we don't know if Dalvin Cook's going to miss a lot of time or not. But the funny thing is a lot of people dropped Henry Ruggs because of his slow start, injuries, missed some games. He's under 50% rostered right now. So I actually think Ruggs is probably the better add than Claypool. A lot of people are going to add Claypool because of that monster game, but I think Ruggs is the number one wide receiver in Oakland, and there's no question about it. And I would love to have Henry Ruggs as a flex option going forward. And he's rostered. I'm pretty sure he's under 50% rostered. So I would have my eye on Ruggs if I could swoop him up.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of that too and pair him with Derek Carr, because Derek Carr had a fantastic game last week. And despite that, that was a great performance. But even before that, he was sustaining fantasy relevant football. So he's someone to keep on your radar too going forward. Their schedule, believe it or not, was harder in the beginning of the year. It opens up for the Oakland Raiders. So I think time will tell if Derek Carr can either prove it or, be tossed to the side. But right now he's a prove it quarterback, and I believe he's fantasy relevant. Damon, you were about to say something. What do you got?
I wasn't, but on Claypool, I agree with Jacob, especially if Deontay is out for any amount of time, and he seems to be getting hurt every game. So Big Ben has to throw it to somebody, and Juju's most likely going to be getting double covered over the top. So Claypool has to perform. But I have a wide receiver for waiver wire, and it's probably somebody that's been dropped, especially after what week are we in? Week 4, and that's Brandon Cooks.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, he was dropped a lot, and with who they just Romeo Crennel in, I think they're gonna change things up and actually try and give him the ball. He got 10 targets last game, so he would be somebody I'd go after, probably above Claypool if he's available.
Man, I'm so glad I didn't drop Brandon Cooks. I almost did.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
I was like, nah, I'm gonna hold on to him.
Yeah,
because I have Fuller too, so I was like, I'm gonna hold on to both of them and see what happens.
Mhm.
Justin, I'm curious your thoughts on Claypool, man. Do you think he's a must-add?
I definitely do. You probably have some people on the bench that you like. They haven't got any time, and they're probably not going to get time. So I'd rather take a fly on some guy that can actually ball out consistently with a thrown offense that Ben Roethlisberger holds. So, yeah, Claypool, you need a wide receiver. Throw him in. He had a great game. I don't see why he could stop with Johnson being out too. So, beautiful ad if you can get him.
Tasty. Justin, do you have your own waiver wire?
If I had this I have a couple. The biggest one, and this goes out to the Dak owners, is he should be rosters. He's not a fancy name, but he's the magic man. Fitzpatrick has to be rostered, man. This guy,
I thought you were going to say Andy Dalton.
Yeah, you set us up right there.
I'm higher on Andy Dalton, but Fitz never. You rather go someone else, but this guy is straight up balling out over there. He's throwing it. He's making plays, and he's putting up big numbers. So he's not going to put up Dak numbers, but he's putting up QB1 numbers, so he should already be rostered. So most likely he's out there. Pick him up. And then in a running back, I like this guy. I actually picked him up. Didn't have a spot to keep him, but McKissick in Washington. I like him.
I wrote him down too.
I didn't know it's possible to get worse than Dwayne Haskins, but Alex Smith wasn't looking good, and they're going to be passing down, checking down. We know he likes to do that. So both him and Gibson can be nice 1-2 punch, and RBs are hurting. So he's a nice little find for me.
Hey, let's take a second, too, to just appreciate the comeback of Alex Smith himself. I think I read somewhere, what was it, like 685 days since he last was on a football field, and to come back from a horrific injury. Have you guys Googled that injury yet to see what his leg looked like? I know we talked about it like 4 weeks ago.
But they have that documentary out. Didn't you watch the documentary, Gabe?
Watch the documentary. Yeah, that will show you what you need to see.
They almost cut off his leg. Like, that's how bad it was.
You're not going to want to see it, trust me. But good to see him back out there. Justin, I like your pick of McKissick, and I also don't like it. But we'll get into that later, okay?
And I just want to say real quick, if Dalvin Cook is out, Alexander Madison is clear-cut, hands down, the number one waiver wire ad. But I don't think that Cook is out yet.
I will also add the Vikings are super boring to watch.
No, they're not. Hey, side note,
I will also add that.
An injury. Mike Williams should be a top ad too.
Thank you, Justin, for mentioning Mike Williams. Coming hot off the game last night. Mike Williams is a must-add, especially if Keenan Allen misses time. I know Jacob mentioned on him. I just wanted to make sure we touched on him.
Yeah, nobody's selected him as their choice, but I might even choose him over Claypool, to be honest, if I could.
That's a good.
We talked about this too, referring to tight ends a little bit earlier, but I hate to say it. Trey Burton looked pretty good last week. When healthy, he looks to be the dominant force in that Indianapolis Colts offense. Unfortunately, not Mo Alley Cox. So my season outlook on Mo Alley Cox is not going to as planned right now, but who knows? But Trey Burton is worth a look, too, if he's out there on your waiver wire and you're stretching for a tight end. We got any other guys? Are we ready to move on? Oh, also, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert. Pick them up.
I think Dalton is a solid bye-week fill-in or 2-quarterback league guy, honestly. Or he's going to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. With those weapons, of course.
Offense, yeah.
Dalton over Garoppolo every day.
Oh, well, of course.
Fantasy, yeah.
And like light, like everything. Pool, soccer, like foosball.
Let's get into some dark horses, baby.
First round fantasy dark horses of the week.
So let's talk about it, boys. I know that unfortunately, Damon and I had to take an absence last week, so we were not here to give our takes. If I really wanted to, I'd just shout out some name of a guy who had a great week, but I'm not going to do that. I'll leave it to you, Jacob, because how did your dark horse do last week?
So I believe mine was Chase Edmonds, and
He did great
because I said, look, I still think Drake is going to be involved, and he still is. He had 18 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. But I just think Edmonds, I said this, like they're like a poor man's version of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Not that they're the same exact players as those guys, but in the sense that they're both going to be used and both going to be fantasy relevant. So I had to start Chase Edmonds in a league as my second running back because I just have a bunch of young guys in that league, and it worked out for me. He had 17 fantasy points in half point PPR. I'm happy with it. And I forget what Justin's was, but Justin had one too.
Justin, what was your dark horse last week?
Oh, DJ Moore. That worked out great too.
Looks like you guys were successful. Very nice. And also a little bit of foreshadow. It tells you how much I paid attention to you guys' episode last week, or should I say ours, because I gotta pivot on my dark horse right now because it is Chase Edmonds. But we'll get to that in a minute. With that being said,
it's still valid, but I want to, before I forget, I want to remind everybody that Scotty Miller is my fantasy nemesis. I'm never starting him again. Even if going forward in his career, he's a top 10 wide receiver for the next 7 years. I'm never drafting him. I'm done with Scotty Miller. Just want to remind everyone of that.
Okay.
He's your Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, basically.
I like it. Well, let's get into this week's dark horse candidates. And while I scurry for another one via the old wide web, I'm going to pass it off to Justin first. Justin, what is your dark horse pick of the week?
You know, he had a beautiful week this week, but I still don't think people want to start him. But for sure, my pick this week is Gaskin. He beasted on the Niners, and he has the easy matchup with the Jets. And they actually gave him goal line work this week. So only moving forward, it should become better and better. That's my guy this week. Start him. Feel confident. He's going to have a good week.
Okay.
Excellent. Short, sweet, to the point.
They can't play the Niners every week, but.
Yeah, true. Good point.
Hey, that being said, we got to give some credit to the Niners. I mean, they are completely obliterated on the defensive end. You can't forget about that. But, hey, Gaskin's had a good game, and you got to give him credit for it. Damon, what about you, my friend? Who is your dark horse player of the week?
Mine is T.Y. Hilton, and it's not for any deep analysis or anything besides that. He has to go off at some point. He has to have a T.Y. Hilton game. He hasn't scored over 10 points in a half point PPR this year, so I'm just gambling on him going off.
Man, one of us got to get that right one week. Like, just somebody name T.Y. Hilton every week.
Yeah, he has to go off.
Eventually, we'll get it.
He has to.
He had an easy matchup against the Browns, and he did mediocre. And he plays.
You know what's funny? He could be someone's like dark horse and fool's gold of the week. Like,
yeah, he's like the same thing. Yeah.
But wait, no, I'm just kidding. That's a solid pick, Damon. We're all waiting for T.Y. to have his moment. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts came out and said, I guess there were rumors that Phillip Rivers was looking to be benched. And just to kind of reassure everybody, he's had a mediocre start, but head coach came out and said, hey, we're riding with him. So, but that's a situation to definitely keep your eye on.
So
especially
who said he might be benched, or is it just speculation?
It was speculation and rumors, but the head coach, it was enough to have the head coach come out and say and state that they're sticking with him and he is their quarterback.
That's interesting. I wonder who they would go with if they benched him.
You got Easton over there, right?
Well, they have, what's his name?
They got the black guy
who was in the last 2 years.
Oh, Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Would they go with Brissett or would they go with Jacob Eason?
They go Brissett.
Yeah, they go Brissett.
Think so?
Yeah.
I mean, what if
that
they're
could
like,
be.
look at Justin Herbert over in LA, like, let's just
true.
draft our rookie. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
that could be
That's
interesting.
That's true. That's true. All right, Jacob. What is your dark horse pick of the week?
So I had a little bit of trouble finding one. Like, there's a lot of bye weeks. Man, I don't know what I'm gonna do with some of my teams. Some of my teams have like 6 guys on a bye week, and I'm like, what the hell?
We'll make a trade.
But that's a good point. But I settled on one. This is the guy I've been high on all year, as long as he's healthy, and mine is DeAndre Swift. Going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I actually consider Swift more of a receiver than a running back, to be honest. If you look at his fantasy production, it's all receiving. But so my point with that is that the Jags have been friendly to running backs, but not friendly to wide receivers. But I still think that even though they're using Peterson and Gabe's favorite player of all time, Kerryon Johnson,
this man.
I still think. Oh, second favorite player. Sorry, Juju. My bad. But I just think that Swift has his own role. Like, it's kind of like a James White type role, and he's. Yeah. I just think, he with Matthew Stafford there, who's a great passer, is just going to get him the ball. So I really like DeAndre Swift next week and for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's a solid pick, and that's one thing to consider, especially in redraft leagues when you draft rookie running backs or rookie wide receivers. You have to go in with the mindset that these guys aren't necessarily going to pop off week 1, week 2,
exactly.
Week 3. It takes time, and Swift's time, may not be this week. Hey, Jacob says it is. I'm fully 100% behind that. I want him to have a great game. But generally in that second half of the season, when teams know where they are in terms of playoff seeding or contention or whatever it may be, they tend to feed the youngins just a little bit more.
He had 4 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown last week, which I really like. And I've been saying that he's going to be this year's Miles Sanders, where he emerges big at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That is still.
I'm going to disagree with all of you there, and I'll tell you why. The Lions and Stafford just don't utilize running backs that much, and I like him, but I don't know if you can expect a huge blow up.
What about all those Theo Riddick years, man, where he was like a solid flex play? He's like a young Theo Riddick.
Theo Riddick, Reggie Bush.
I flexed Theo Riddick, and it wasn't pretty every week. It was nice. I mean, as a PPR back, I do like Swift for that reason, but I'm not expecting big things. But we'll keep eye on it.
Does Adrian Peterson being there have a lot to do with that? Like, do you think if he wasn't there, it'd be a different story?
No, I don't think. If it wasn't if it wasn't AP, it might be Kerryon. We know Swift is going to be the PPR back out there. It's just how much work does Stafford feed to those guys? It's the Lions, and that's what I'm staying consistent with on him. Not that
you're on the Lions because
it's the way they operate under Stafford. It's just how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah,
that is a fair point, and I'd like to say too that if Peterson wasn't there, it just changed my outlook on the Detroit Lions backfield. I think I'd want a piece of Kerryon a little bit more, and probably more so Swift for the PPR.
On the field more in general.
Yeah, well, exactly. In Detroit, they run a lot of empty back, and if you run empty back, then you're not going to have AP out there. You're going to have Swift.
Exactly. And Damon, to back up to piggyback off of TY really quick, he had his best game of the year, by the way. 10 targets, 69 yards, boys. So he is on the up and up. He had 12 fantasy points in full PPR. So
it's not bad. Like
it wasn't bad at all.
It's not bad, but it's not TY.
Yeah,
not TY. It's not vintage TY. All right, boys. So I couldn't find one in time, but I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to double down on Chase Edmonds, running back from the
last week. This is a new week.
Yeah, but I'm doubling down. That's what I'm saying. I'm doubling down on Chase Edmonds, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Currently, right now on the season, although he doesn't get a lot of work with the carries, he's averaging 4.5 a carry compared to Drake's 3.5 a carry. If you look at Drake's last 2 games, he's utterly atrocious. And I hate to say that because a lot of people had high hopes, especially our man Joe, of Drake coming into the season. Not only to mention, Edmonds has 17 targets in the passing game compared to Drake's 5. All right. The last 2 games, Edmonds has caught 6 balls or seen 6 targets out of the backfield, and he's caught 5 balls a game. I expect that to go up. I expect them to fade Kenyon Drake. I think it is his time. He is not producing. He had a primed matchup. Although he got the touchdown, he had a primed matchup with the New York Jets, and he still was not as efficient as people would have liked to see. So with that being said, I do think that Edmonds' time is coming. When we do see big breaking plays from the Arizona Cardinals out of the backfield, they are coming from Edmonds. All right. They take on a Dallas team who was devastated by the Dak injury. Usually that's going to give a little beef to that defense, a little bit of heart. I think Edmonds is prime for the taking this week, especially with all of the buys coming up, like Jacob had mentioned. So if I had to put a prediction on it, I'd say 5 catches, 50 yards, a touchdown, and 50 yards on the ground. Keep in mind, he hasn't even had 50 yards on the ground this year.
Not at all. No,
it's a lot 50 of catching, yards. Yeah, to see him eclipse 50 yards on the ground, 50 yards in the air. That's 100 yards total and a touchdown. That's a 20-point fantasy game.
Who are they playing again this upcoming week?
They're playing Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Which is a middle of the road defense in terms of run defense.
It should be a shootout. I mean, it
should be a shootout, exactly. So when you talk about shootouts, you talk about passing game. Edmonds is superior in the passing game to Drake as of right now. I like Edmonds on the stack here, back-to-back weeks with Jacob and mine.
Gabe, trade me just Chase Edmonds in Dynasty. I don't even want Drake. Just trade me Chase Edmonds.
We'll see about that. I'll trade him this week after he goes off for his monster breakout game. It's coming, folks.
Stats on that for you too. I like it for one reason. I read a stat. He saw the most time on the field, 45% of the snaps.
Exactly.
Let me tell you something. And when I was watching that game closely because I traded for Drake, I'm rooting for Drake, and the analyst who was announcing the game, he said, "Listen, he wants them to go north and south, but Drake likes to go east and west with those cutbacks." And as soon as he did that, he got benched, and Edmonds had a good game. If you watch the touchdown drive, he got put back in the game, and they basically tried to spoon feed him that touchdown, which they did, but he jammed it up the middle, got an extra 3-4 yards every run. He had his best runs of the year probably on that last drive. So although I do like Edmonds being that hunt to Kenyon's Chubb, I don't think Edmonds is going to fully take over if Drake follows the game plan and starts hitting it up. Because as I was watching it and when they put it like that, I saw it as they were saying it. So I hope Drake doesn't fall fully, but Edmonds is a good back. I like that pick.
Are we going to book it down territory? Maybe let's say this week, who has a better fantasy performance, Kenyon Drake or Chase Edmonds? I'm willing to go there.
I would go Drake, yeah.
All right.
I'll go Edmonds.
Let's book it down.
When he got that touchdown, the whole team was laughing and having a good time for him. They wanted him to succeed. I don't think
exactly because they knew that was his last moment on the field.
All right.
They're like, congratulations, buddy. Go take a seat.
Hey, I'm still taking the volume. If he breaks the 50-yarder, you have a beautiful week. I'm taking those 19, 18 carries.
Come on, who you got, Drake or Edmonds this week?
Oh, he said Drake.
They're going to feed Drake.
All right. Hey, Jacob, you're tagging along with me, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm chasing Edmonds all day.
Who's got the momentum right now? It's the Chief. It's Gabriel. So, yeah, stick with me. You'll end up on the good side.
Just to be clear, we're saying most points PPR?
Yeah,
most points.
Full point PPR.
Okay.
Yeah. Barring injury, of course.
I'll take Drake.
Awesome. All right, boys. Well, I think that does it. We got to book it down out of it. Let's go ahead and look at some Fool's Gold.
You are out of here. Whatever. I don't really care. I'm just going to sit this one out.
So, again, I had the problem of not paying too much attention last week, but I knew my boys would carry us through. So, Jacob, who was your Fool's Gold player of the week last week?
Oh, man. I don't even remember.
You sound so upset, dude.
Hold on. Let me pull up my notes for a second. Justin, do you remember yours?
Fool's Gold player of the week? We keep track of these guys.
I think I know who I said, but I'm pulling it up just to be clear.
Oh my goodness!
I don't want to give you.
I was like so caught off guard.
While they do that, let's keep a rundown, guys. We are good on Fool's Gold. All of us have struck in Fool's Gold. I'm 3 for 3 currently. Jacob is 2 for 3. Damon is 2 for 3. And Joe is 3 for 3. Justin, as a fill-in, I believe, is 1 for 1. So we're looking pretty good on Fool's Gold players. We're doing pretty good on that front. Jacob, do you have your Fool's Gold player from last week? Or if you'd like, you can give us this week's, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I'll try to remember what it was, but mine, I guess it's gonna be a shocker because he's basically a must start. And look, Fool's Gold could mean okay, you have this guy and you're gonna start him still, but lower your expectations. And since I got to choose first, I get to name mine, and that's Josh Allen for next week. He's playing the Chiefs. I think Josh Allen is very similar to Lamar Jackson as a player in general, where he's great with the rushing yards and his passing is questionable, but I do think at least this season he's way better passer than Lamar Jackson. So they're playing the Chiefs, right? And look at what the Chiefs did to Lamar Jackson. I think it's going to be a very similar game to Chiefs Ravens. So my Fool's Gold, and I'm not saying sit Josh Allen. I'm saying lower your expectations, but we've seen where some teams have two really good quarterbacks. Let's say, I don't even know who are the Packers playing next week. Are they playing?
They have a bye.
No, the Packers are on bye this week.
Oh, they play Tampa Bay. Sorry.
Oh, that's a tough defense. But just for example, let's say Aaron Rodgers had a really good matchup this week, and you have Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen. I would start Aaron Rodgers. So if you have a better option, if you have another, some people roster 2 top 10 quarterbacks. They just do. It ended up that way. If you have another top 10 quarterback with a plus matchup, I would look at it. But Josh Allen's still a beast. I just think just lower your expectations this week.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Damon.
Oh no, continue on Jacob's thought.
No, I'm done.
I was just gonna say. I mean, I like it and I don't like it. I mean, I get it. You could argue that the Chiefs were playing a little bit differently against our Oakland Raiders here. Maybe they didn't game plan very well for Derek Carr, but Derek Carr lit up the field. By association, I do like Josh Allen more than Derek Carr. But again, the Chiefs, as we've seen, Super Bowl champions, they're very well equipped to prepare for certain types of quarterbacks. They could have just overlooked Derek Carr. He had a great week. Don't underestimate them going forward, planning and having a much better defense overall. So, I mean, it's not the worst pick. I'm still starting Josh Allen because with what he's been able to do so far in the fantasy season, I feel like even a mediocre game is going to have 21, 22 points. And I'd take that over most other quarterbacks.
Yeah, for
Damon,
sure.
did you have something to say, Damon?
I was my Fool's Gold, just gonna piggyback off Jacob because he mentioned mine right after his, which was Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is he's in a doghouse. With Josh Allen, that's more of a hot take because he's number 2 right now, quarterback right behind Russell Wilson. I mean, his gimmick was running, and he's only ran for 83 yards this season, and he's still number 2. That means he's improved vastly in his receiving game. I mean, because of Diggs, of course, top 15. But Lamar Jackson, I'd rather start Derek Carr. They're only 10 points apart. Fitzpatrick, Lamar Jackson has become a matchup-based guy to me now because when they get up, they don't run the score. They just kind of slow down and unlike the Chiefs.
I mean, I want to disagree with what you're saying, but you speak pretty much facts. You look at Cleveland in week 1, they were bottom tier defense. He went off for 30 fantasy points. Then you turn around, you go to Houston, which was a top 10 defense, 17 fantasy points. Plays Kansas City the next week. The game plan for him, 14 fantasy points. Then he goes and plays Washington, one of the worst pass defenses, 27. And last week, Cincy, which they are atrocious in most respects, but they're pretty good in the passing game, defensive-wise, and he had 14 fantasy points. Next week, they take on Philly. They are currently, I believe, 6th best when it comes to pass defense. So unless Lamar Jackson shows his last year's running ability, it's not a bad pick, Damon. And honestly, I think a lot of people need to realize that. So Maybe you've just brought it to light a little bit earlier because people are going to – you guys have mentioned both of my dynasty quarterbacks. Thank you for that.
I know. That's why I started laughing because we have a 2-quarterback dynasty league, and those are Gabe's top 2 guys.
Whatever. Justin, what is your Fool's Gold player of the week?
Before I get to it, I saw who I picked last week. I didn't like the outcome.
You got to name it, man. What was it?
You got to say it.
I said Josh Jacobs, but it was a beautiful game for the Raiders. And if I didn't watch the whole entire game, definitely the end of it. But am I correct? He didn't have the most amazing first half, right? He was pretty much held.
The 2 touchdowns pretty much saved his day.
Yeah.
But they went up against a really solid run defense, which you had mentioned. So
he definitely proved me wrong. I'm happy. I'm not happy I got it wrong, but good for the man because he's a good halfback, that's for sure. If I got to go this week, and it kind of piggybacks on Jacobs, you cannot bench this guy, but you have to temper your expectations. Miles Sanders against the Ravens, tough defense. I just don't like Philly at all. So for him,
I know who my dark horse was, but continue, Justin. I'll name it after you're done.
For him to blow up, I don't think he's going to blow up. He had 2 touchdowns this week. I don't think he's going to do that against Baltimore. So just dark fool's gold a little bit, not blowing up. Miles Sanders.
Sweet. Solid pick. I mean, I like it. I think that was one of Joe's picks a couple of weeks ago, and he had the same type of performance. So last week was an explosive game, but it might be sandwiched between 2 mediocre games. So, Justin, solid pick. Jacob, who was your Fool's Gold player?
So, Justin, if you remember, I said Joshua Kelly because everybody was going to rush to start him, I said. Yep. And I was like, don't do it this week. I don't think he's going to have a great performance. And it ended up being right. And this is crazy because I have him in a couple leagues. And in one of them, I picked up Justin Jackson. So I'm happy because Justin Jackson had a great game. So I'm happy in that. And another league, I didn't pick him up. And he was still available after waivers, but somebody else picked him up. And I'm like, man, that hurts. So, man, I don't know what to do with Kelly. In redraft, I'm not like, I don't think he's a must roster, but you have to hold on to him until that backfield gets figured out. But like in Dynasty, I would hold on to him.
Go ahead, Justin. Sorry.
It's real quick about if you watch the game tonight, correct me if I'm wrong. I literally saw them give both a couple opportunities, and they just rode the hot hand, which was Jackson. I can easily see Kelly doing the same thing in reverse. It's a hard situation. I think they're just going to ride the hot hand.
The thing is, though, Justin Jackson is a better pass catching back just in general, and he did a lot in the receiving game this game. So
I picked Jackson over Kelly for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kelly has
that's the thing. If you have both of them, or even if you have Kelly, don't drop him. That's not what I'm suggesting. Yeah. He was just my dark horse for last week.
Very good call.
Yeah, in Eckler's absence, I'd much rather have Justin Jackson than Joshua Kelly, again, in reference to last night's game. I mean, Joshua Kelly had numerous opportunities, but it seems to me that the only thing he is good at is just getting the ball and plowing forward. That seems to be usually what he does. He got a few opportunities to go outside, either or which way, and he was stuffed both times. So not something I'd like to see or want on my fantasy team. But hey, that only tells me that he's probably good around the goal line. This week, I mean, we saw Justin Herbert poach 2 touchdowns around the goal line area. That's not always going to be the case. So he's there for a couple of touchdowns if you need him in a desperate start week in and week out until Eckler's return. So solid pick. With that being said, I got to get to my Fool's Gold player. And I think, guys, I'm being a little too easy here because I'm taking the easy way out. And I'm just going to say it. Usually over the last couple of weeks, we've gone with groups of players, whether it be the New York Giants backfield or the Houston wide receivers. This week, I'm heading down to San Francisco, and I'm choosing the 49ers wide receiving core. After last week's performance, you just don't know what to expect. Is Jimmy G coming back? Are you rolling with CJ Beathard? Are you rolling with Nick Mullins? We don't know too much about that yet. Although I'm sure the Niners fans here do. Jacob, you might know a little bit more than I do. But looking at that game and seeing how chaotic it was for that team, it didn't shake any of my bones the right way. Kittle also had a bad game. I find him far more likely to rebound next week more than I do with Ayuk and Debo. Debo, I feel like, is still getting eased in. His time will come. Ayuk, You just don't know what to expect. He's going to have a good game. He's going to have a bad game. I don't know. And I'm not looking to do either of those players this week as they go up against the Los Angeles Rams, the third best defense in the NFL in terms of fantasy right now. Well, not technically for fantasy, but just in the terms of the NFL. 29th, which is third best. So I'm sorry, that makes him fourth best. I don't like him. I have Deebo Samuel. I've stashed him all year long. He finally comes off IR last week. I was excited to see what he could do. I knew that it wasn't going to be great, and it wasn't. This week, I was even more excited because they had a primo matchup against the Miami Dolphins, and that quarterback situation needs to be thinned out or situated before I move forward with any or start any, or should I say deploy any of my 49er wide receivers. So those are my full squad players of the
that. The only startable Niners in fantasy are Kittle and Mostert. And actually, I still like McKinnon. He's not going to go away. Look, every fantasy player has a bad game, unless you're Christian McCaffrey or Michael Thomas last year. But every fantasy player has up and down games. So I do think McKinnon, Mostert, and Kittle, like Mostert and Kittle, you start them every week no matter what. McKinnon, you see what the matchup is. Other than that, stay away. Like, trust me, I'm in that 2-quarterback league. I had Garoppolo in my lineup to start the week, and I was like, no. I thought about this too. I was like, if his ankle acts up, they're gonna pull him out of the game. And whether that's what it was or not, they still pulled him out of the game. So I started Ben Roethlisberger, ended up with 21 points. So I'm good with that. So I agree, man. Obviously, you have to start Kittle. Mostert looks really good still. So other than that, I wouldn't start Deebo or Ayuk at all.
I would start Ayuk, especially in a flex spot, because he's a big play guy, and I got him on a couple teams.
Just because you got it.
That's it.
Hey, are we going to book it down territory?
I say Ayuk scores more points than Kittle.
No, well, wait. What? I wasn't going to go there.
Season or next week?
No, next week.
Oh,
oh man! If that's what you want to do, I'll take that.
No, hold on. I want to see the easier route. What's your route?
The easier route was just
going Deebo or Ayuk, right?
Not even that. I was going to just see if Eo could get, I don't know, plus or minus 12
Well, let's
points.
look at what is his projection in full PPR next week?
It's probably nothing. It's probably 8.5.
It's like 11 points.
No, I see him getting over under 12 fantasy points. I'll do that, and that's a gimme.
Oh, I take that easy.
He's projecting over 13.24.
That's.
I think 12 is still a good line though, because you
guys are not going to lay down. It's prime time, 5:20.
I got a little nervous, but 13, I'm confident. 13. So
they're playing. You guys are playing the Rams in prime time. Like you guys are going to have to perform.
I'm taking the over.
Yeah.
On and Jacob over. Justin, what about you?
Under.
Over.
Okay.
Justin.
Boring Minnesota Viking fan, dude. They keep the ball for like 95% of the game. It's just so boring.
Still lose. I don't know how. Yeah, we don't.
All right, guys. Well, that was our Fool's Gold segment. Let's go ahead talk about some trade targets. And I've been letting you guys go first the first few times, but I'm here to say that I got a trade target, and I think you need to pick him up everywhere. He's going to win you fantasy leagues this year, and that is Antonio Gibson, running back of the Washington football team. Now, you might say, Gabe, why do I want a running back on an awful football team? And my answer to you is this. I'm not too sure yet, but I do know that last week Gibson saw the most time share. He played 56% of snaps last week, which was his most by far this season. I do know that Justin was very high on McKissick. He's a waiver wire priority, and by all means, surely he could be. However, Gibson is the future of this team. That team is not going to contend going into the second half of the season as we start to reach that point. I do believe they will transition how they deploy Antonio Gibson, and that means giving him full reign of his backfield. It is not McKissick's team to own. It is Antonio Gibson's team of the future, and I like it. I'm not calling for a breakout next week by any means. But with how thin the field is at running back, I think that you need to scoop him up now rather than later. Because, again, he's not going to have good weeks, maybe this week or maybe next week. He's still building that potential, but steadily over the course of the season, he has continued to produce. I know last week he only had 10 fantasy points. The week before that, he came out, had a nice showing. He put up 20. His time will come, all right? McKissick is not the future. I'll say it again. And I think you need to grab him now because if he does happen to break out one of these next 2 weeks, the price for him is going to be very high. He is sitting on someone's bench most likely right now. Not very confident owner probably. They're looking to probably do something with him. I'm telling you right now is the time to make your move on Antonio Gibson. Pick him up. He's going to win you fantasy leagues down the stretch.
I actually wrote his name down too. I think that's a great choice. I tried to trade for him, but that was to like the second greediest guy in all the leagues that we play for. And so he said no. Yeah. How'd you know? Oh, you guessed it.
If you can get Gibson for a good deal, hell yeah, but he's pretty expensive because anyone that has him right now likes him. So if you can get him, by all means, swindle that deal.
I say that just because I think that this is probably the lowest you'll be able to get him from this point.
Because like for better or worse, people really go based on week to week. Like, and I do it too. Yeah. My opinion of players changes week to week. I try not to do that as often, but it does. But yeah, that's a good choice.
The one thing I will say about this is that his schedule opens up coming up, and then he hits a few roadblocks literally right at the start of playoffs. Actually, his playoff schedule is brutal. He's got Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Seattle, all top 4 defenses in terms of running back. So I don't know. Maybe trade for him now, ride his back for a few weeks, hopes he has a few good games. But in terms of playoffs, man, I don't know. That actually just kind of scared me.
And the reason why you want Gibson, who's on a not a great offense, is because he's a great pass catching back. That's why, because they're either going to be down or in shootouts, and he's going to be involved in the passing game.
Actually, never mind. If you can make it week 16, which is championship weekend, he's got Carolina. Go get Antonio Gibson, baby. Ride him through to your fantasy championship. Justin, do you have a trade target or a sell? Do you have a trade target or a sell this week?
I got a couple trade targets. I'm gonna name.
You know what? Hold on, just wait, because whenever you go, you name like 70,000 players. Right. Jacob, why don't you go?
Just name his one, and then after we all name our one, then we can talk about.
That's what I was trying
If I had a listen, when I make trades, I think all around, so I got a bunch of names. But if I had to put it on one right now, it's Laviska Shenault. I mean, he's a low buy target. No, anyone that has him likes him, but it's not. I'm not selling. So,
this week,
he has a great game every week, but that's what I'm saying. It's not your make it or break it, but it's, hey, I need a flex. I have a buy fill in. This is the man you can set. No problems. Beautiful year so far, getting you double digits. And Shark got a little banged up. I don't think it's too serious, but his value is great. And Minshew throws. So Chenault's my number one buy target right now.
That's a really good one. Justin, I didn't mean to shut you down. I just had to shut you off before you open the floodgates. Let's let these other guys.
There's much for us.
Shenault is a great pick. Damon, do you have a buy or sell this week?
I've been burned by trades recently, so I don't have like somebody I'm very passionate about. But if I'm looking for like a running back right now, I try and get somebody like a trade target like a Chris Carson's, because he's in a bye next week. So I would try and get somebody like that that's on a 2-3 team that needs a player right away where you can.
Great point. People do trade away players when they're on a bye. They want to win that week.
That is a good point, and you bring up a really good
decent value, of course.
Yeah, you bring up a really good strategy. It's often seen that people will trade players that have already, or I should say this, they will trade for players who have already had their bye weeks for a player that has their bye week to come, knowing that they can get the maximum value and the most games out of them. So yeah, Chris Carson on a bye week, it's not a bad sell. I mean, it's not a bad
or a middle of the road team for sure.
Definitely. Jacob, what about you, man? Round us out with our buy or sell.
So mine is going to be a wide receiver, and it's tough talking wide receivers with like with all of these, with like pickups and with trades, because there's so many options out there. Like you can pick up a guy on the waiver wire who might do just as good as somebody you're going to trade for. But if you really need a wide receiver, I would trade for Tyler Boyd right now. Like I said, people are so recency biased where they're like, oh, the guy had a bad game. And look, they played the Ravens. The Joe Burrow, I mean, by the way, Joe Burrow might be a buy low target as well. But I would go out and get Tyler Boyd if you can, because like Justin and I love Tyler Boyd. We were talking him up last episode saying like he has a potential to end the year as like a low end wide receiver 1, just because of how when Joe Burrow has a good matchup, how well he plays, and that's his number 1 guy. So Boyd did not have a great game this week. Obviously, the whole Bengals offense didn't do well. They only scored 3 points. I would go out and get Boyd if you can. He's easy to acquire because he's not like a superstar name, and he didn't have a great game. So I would try to get him if you can.
Not only that, he might be a little bit lower because next week they play the Colts, who have one of the best pass.
It's another bad matchup. And if somebody would have taken my Josh Allen sit, I would have went with Joe Burrow, because a lot of like Joe Burrow is a hot name right now. Like a lot of people will be like, oh, he had a bad game, he's not going to do that again, and start him up next week, especially with bye weeks and Dak being out. I would sit Joe Burrow next week as well. But for most of the season, I'd start him though.
I think he's going to do better against the Colts. They're playing in division game, and Baltimore just destroyed them. I don't expect that to happen often, but the Colts are good.
It's
Justin,
a solid.
trade me Tyler Boyd.
If you offer me a good deal, but
Hey, do you want Bell still?
Oh, that trade sailed away, my man. That trade's gone. I'm not. That's just. If
Tyler Boyd.
Dude,
Yeah.
I offered Boyd for so
fair
many players, and I definitely offered.
That's an even trade. What you act? Hey, don't come
I
crying.
don't
back.
want it anymore, man.
You're not gonna get it. It doesn't matter.
They both scored 7 points or under.
Yeah. Hey, let me throw out a hot undercover one that I really do love, and I was debating. My man James White. I really believe he's undervalued, and no one is even thinking about this guy. It seems like white running backs are light. They are, but his name still falls beneath all the young guys like Swift or White. You definitely go Swift 99% of the time, but White is probably going to be more consistent as that flex play. And I think he's a matchup-proof guy. He's going to get his PPR points. So if you need a running back, I'm sure the White owner has made contingency plans the past 4 weeks without him pretty much. That's why I think you can buy him.
Oh yeah, he's definitely underrated.
Yeah.
That's definitely a solid pick. I like it. James White has always been on a fantasy roster if I can have him for sure.
Also, you can get Zach Ertz for
Oh
nothing.
yeah, you're right.
Look, Zach Ertz is not droppable. You can't drop him. But we saw this last year. He sucked at the beginning of last year. Go look at the stats. At the end of the to finish last year, he was a top 3 tight end, I believe. And it was crazy. He blew up at the end of last year. That could be very possible. Again, I was listening to somebody else talk about this, and the reason why he's struggling is because he's their only option. So the team just shut him down, and they have no one else. Like he's never open. So once these guys start coming back, once Alshon comes back, once Rager comes back, he's going to open up more, and he's going to have more opportunities. Like I have Zach Ertz in a dynasty league. I'll trade him away right now for cheap, but nobody wants to trade me for him. Yeah. So like for example, you can get Zach Ertz for very, very cheap right now.
Yeah, I agree. Did we talk about Fulgham? Do we think that's real or no?
I had his name written down for waiver wire pickups, and nobody brought it up, so I wasn't sure. But we could talk about it. So, like, what do you guys think? Are you putting in a?
I don't like him the same reason you just mentioned, because once the receivers are coming back, he just moves back down traditionally. So I mean, if you need a deep play, maybe, but soon it won't be there. I don't think.
Yeah, same. That's the reason why we probably didn't mention him.
Yeah, soon, but short term, it's just too tough to call. That's why you have players like Fulcrum or Greg Ward Jr. that are having these big games, because that's really all that they have out there. And Wentz is going to throw the ball because they're down by a lot of points. Eventually, Jeffrey will come back. Deshaun Jackson will get healthy. Rager will come back. it's an interesting backfield, or not backfield. It's an interesting receiving core, to say the least. Let's move on, though. We're going to go ahead and do some keep, trade, cut today. I have a group of wide receivers I think are pretty interesting right now. One of these guys was meant to have, quite the year. I think some of us even called for a Calvin Ridley breakout type year as a wide receiver too. Unfortunately, it hasn't panned out. Can you guys think of that person? I don't know why I made that.
That hasn't broken out.
Yeah, he hasn't done what he wanted to do, what people have wanted him to do, and that's Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup. Okay. Second player is a guy that Demont Ricks has thrown some shade on in the past, and honestly, rightly so. Rightly so. I think he caught a touchdown last week. That's Marquise Brown.
Okay.
And our last one is. And he did. And the last one is our up and coming rookie, which I think makes this interesting. T. Higgins, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes.
Let's see.
So what are we thinking, guys? Keep, trade, cut. Michael Gallup, Marquise Brown, or T. Higgins. I'll start us off. I think when you're looking at these, it's very likely that you have these three guys in a scenario where they're on your team. I know most of us probably don't have it, but the way things shake out, you could very easily have these guys on your team. Sure. I'm dropping Michael Gallup. I'm probably trading away T. Higgins off his hot start, and I'm keeping or holding Marquise Brown in the hopes that Lamar Jackson can have a better passing game down the stretch.
Ooh.
I hate these. You always have to cut somebody, and I don't want to cut either of these guys, to be honest, because look, if Dak was still playing, and if Gallup had another bad game, Gallup would be my cut. But there's a possibility that he emerges under Andy Dalton. It's just it's where like a receiver just vibes better with a different quarterback, right? And what if suddenly now Gallup's his favorite target, which I don't want to see because I have a lot invested in CeeDee Lamb. But I still think CeeDee Lamb is safe because he's in the slot. So I think he's going to be pretty safe. But, man, this is tough. I guess all right, I'm going to cut Higgins because I haven't – like, it's just – I like him. He's on an upward trajectory, but it's not proven yet. I'm going to trade Marquise Brown because I think I can get a lot more value for him right now than any of those other two guys. And I'll hold on to Gallup, hoping he – blows up with Dalton.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
I cut Higgins. I would trade Gallup in hopes that people watched that game with Dalton and seen if they had a connection, because the throws that he did make to him were difficult throws, and Gallup went and got him. So I'm hoping I can trade him to a Cowboy fan, really. And I would keep Brown because he's been pretty consistent. I think he had like 6 targets in the first 3 games, then 8, then 10 this last week. So I would just hang on to Brown because he seems to be getting better throughout the year.
Okay.
That is fair. Justin, what about you?
I think we all have different ones because I'm cutting Gallup. Not that I want to cut him, but he has the lowest variability. Like for me, he can't blow up a lot. I can't trade him for a lot, so I have to cut him. I'm keeping Higgins.
He's the least valuable, I think.
Yeah, I'm keeping Higgins, and I'll tell you why. Because he has a nice ceiling, a decent floor, and I like that about him because I can see him getting me 2 touchdowns, but for sure I can see him getting me 10 points on a low day. And I'm trading Brown because when I look for trades, I want to target people that like the player that I'm giving him, obviously, but I'm also wanting to sell him the idea that Jackson's going to get better. So I definitely think I can get more value for Brown than the other 2 guys. So that's my trade for sure.
Touche.
I like it. I don't like it. I like it.
It's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. Well, there you go. There's keep, trade, cut. Keep in mind, though, we're going to try to find a few other segments to plug in here every now and again as the season goes along, because keep, trade, cut it gets a little hard, guys. It gets a little hard. But
I like it, though, because it forces you to make a decision. Sometimes you have to make those decisions on your team. Like I can't tell you guys how many times every week I'm like, I have to cut a player that I don't want to.
I don't want to.
Crazy.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, folks. Well, hey, as always, let's take a look at our first round fantasies podcast.
Hey, I don't know why I can't log in to the.
Oh, dude, you're gravy. It's all good because you know why? Don't worry about it. We freaking won, man. We freaking won. We beat the Fresh Prince of Fantasy Football. Guess what, Fresh Prince? You weren't looking so fresh last week when we were smacking that ass. That's
What?
Hey, my apologies. I didn't mean to go there. I think I got teleported to a different time. That was weird, guys.
As Gabe's like main soundbite for the show, man.
Hey,
That's
if you tuned in this long, I apologize for that. I don't know where that came from, but
first of all, we've been doing pretty good in that league. I mean, we have Aaron on Diggs. Like, come on.
Yeah. It definitely takes us to 4-1. And not only that, we have Diggs waiting to play tomorrow. Fresh Prince has no one, so sorry about that. What I would, by the way, shout out to Fresh Prince of Fantasy Football. He puts out some great content out there. With that being said, I'm really looking forward to next week's matchup because I don't want to say I like these guys more than I like the other guys in our league. I love everybody in the first round fantasy, first ever podcasters league. Without a doubt, I'm super thankful for everybody. But the shenanigans that our guys at the Sloppy Gents, or I guess they go as the Sloppy Gentlemen's Fantasy Football League, these guys are epic, and I encourage all of you guys to go out there and give them a follow. They take fantasy football seriously and fun at the same time. They do some crazy stuff. I can't even begin to list all of the things I've seen on their Instagram feed that just make me freaking laugh out loud, dude. It's hilarious, the stuff they do. They were 4-0, or I should say they were 3-0 heading into this week, so it was going to make a really prime time matchup between us and them. They lost this week, so battle of first and second place at 4-1.
So we'll be 4-1. That's a great matchup still. Yeah.
4-1. We got Aaron Jones coming back this week off a bye. Gaskins held his own as our running back 2 this week. James Conner did his thing to keep us steady and above water. CeeDee Lamb was a great start in the flex spot. And Kyler Murray.
What a great draft pick CeeDee Lamb was.
That was a great
draft. Was that yours? Is that why?
Yeah, it was.
Well, again, shout out to not only the Fresh Prince of Fantasy Football, but also to the Sloppy Gents Fantasy Football League. We appreciate both of you guys and look forward to kicking your butts. Again, I don't know why I said that earlier. Anyway,
smacking that ass.
Yeah, like sensual.
Moving on. Let's go ahead and take a look at, I have it here somewhere, our viewer question of the week. I had it. I don't know where it went. Let me blow it up here. Again, we appreciate you guys as always. If you have a question for the show, please go ahead and DM us over at First Round Fantasy or email the First Round Fantasy team at gmail.com. I'm sorry, firstroundfantasy@gmail.com. With that being said, this question, I had it. I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, Brecken Meyer. Mayer or my Meyer? What do you guys think?
Meyer.
Brecken Meyer. Thank you. Brecken Meyer. Rest of season, who do you prefer, Justin Jefferson or Brandon Cooks? Interesting.
So this must have been after yesterday's performance, right?
I'm assuming. I can look at the dates on it.
Because before yesterday, it wasn't even discussed.
Yeah, it was just Justin.
So I like this after next week. It makes it more of a question mark. Man, that is tough.
It has to be Cooks, right? No,
I'm going Cooks. I go with the better quarterback in that situation.
It has to be Cooks. Coaching change, better quarterback.
That is very difficult, man.
They hold the ball for 95% of the game.
In redraft, and that's what it is, I'm going Cooks.
Yeah, I think it's Cooks.
Justin?
I gotta go Cooks as well, just because they got rid of the coach. They're gonna change what they've done.
Like they're gonna play normal offense like they should have been
the whole time.
He's not gonna do this every week, but he's not gonna drop goose eggs all day.
Yeah.
It's Jefferson's nice, but he's a rookie. You got to go Cooks. He's been elite before. I can see him doing it again.
Yeah, definitely. Cooks is a 1,000-yard receiver through and through each of his first.
Hey, that was a great question. That was not an easy decision for me.
It wasn't.
To be
It
honest.
wasn't.
It's pretty easy for me. I got to be honest, but
it wasn't a decision we wanted to make.
Close.
Well, with that being said, again, Brecken Mayer, now that I pronounced it right, thank you for the question. We always appreciate it. Again, DM us, Instagram, First Round Fantasy, or send us an email, firstroundfantasy@gmail.com. We'll be sure to get your question on the show. Guys, I think that just about does it. Quick hashtag notices. T-Public, get the merch. It's all you ever wanted and more.
Oh,
I was like, all right, cool. Yeah.
I was just saying, game time.
Glasses, but all right, sounds good. And I'll tell you what, guys, we love you so much. We love you so much. T-Public on sale right now. Go out there and get some First Round Fantasy merch. We'd love to see you in it. Maybe even tag us in a post if you love us that much. Yeah, please do.
Justin,
I think
where's your First Round Fantasy shirt, bro? Come on, step your game
On the
up.
way. I'm getting
Is it?
too.
It's on the way. You've been on the show for 4 weeks now, Justin. Where the hell is it?
That's what I like.
Hey, they got some dope stuff on there, man. The shirts are
I know.
comfortable. Very
I was
comfortable.
telling my girl I have to get a couple things.
Your
Trust me.
sweatshirts.
Hey, they have women's clothes too.
Oh, I'm gonna get her a shirt.
Well, no, because then she'll have to. Never mind. All right, boys, we are out of here. Have a great night. Peace.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.